Fantastic. Thank you all very much for joining us on our April meeting. I want to thank my colleagues for being willing to move the meeting till today. We were supposed to meet last week on April 7th, and we rescheduled. So thank you for your willingness to reschedule. We'll begin. I did not see any member of the public, so I'll assume there's no public comment. Anyone online? Fantastic. So we'll assume there's no committee responses. Agenda item 3, approval of minutes. We'll go one by one. First, approval of the minutes from March 3rd, 2026 work session. All right, approved. Approval of the minutes for March 23rd work session.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Those are both approved. Great. This will bring us right to our full agenda, which are a couple of policies. We'll see how much we can get through, knowing that one policy we may have to table. And I'll get there when we get there. First is policy 2XXX. If I'm not mistaken, the number may be 2111. 2111.1. That is what is recommended. But anyway, the policy is school visits by board members. We reviewed this policy in March at the March 3rd meeting. We had some suggestions to add some language from 2 other policies. One, visitors to the school, and then public conduct on school property. Some of that has been added. I want to thank Emily for helping me with that. Thank you, Emily. And the question becomes, how do we want to proceed? Edits, corrections, additions, deletions. It's up for discussion, board colleagues. I'm in agreement. Anything else? Do we need time to review it real quick? Yep. And a reminder, no matter what we do, we still have a couple rounds of discussion.
I think I have one question in our previous meeting about it, and it was like which says that when we're visiting as parents, we gotta follow the visitor, right? Or if we're gonna visit as board member capacity, we have to go through Dr. Brown and the principal and all of that.
Yep.
I guess my question was, if while I am visiting as a parent, I know it's we can't like mix the two, so it's so as you're visiting as a parent, I guess my question was like, how can I like honor my board member status plus the staff and the teachers?
Yep.
But if you do notice something, like what's the best practice to,
I think Emily's probably had to negotiate this as well. I'm certain. Let's be real. That's a hard thing to try to avoid. You're there at a school, someone's going to ask you something about your board capacity.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's vastly different than visiting a school with the intended purpose of visiting the school at your board capacity. So we've had a number of board members, rightfully so, who want to see what's going on in a particular school, want to walk around, or want to see some instructional spaces. That's different than, hey, I'm here to pick up my kid, and someone says, hey, this is going on, how can we have that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a gray area, but I see those as being slightly different. And at that time, I follow whatever protocol we need.
Mm-hmm.
So be it the communication protocol, like, okay, thank you, but before you talk to me, have you talked to the teacher, or have you talked to the principal, or have you talked to, whatever the chain of command is. And then if there's contractual issues, then we follow the protocol of the contract.
Yeah.
So that would be my best recommendation.
So, but I figure like if I see something or notice something, not necessarily somebody approaching me, so we are not to say anything and just bring it straight to.
I think we're required to bring it to Dr. Brown.
Dr. Brown.
I don't think required is a strong word.
Okay.
I think that's the best practice, is to bring it to the superintendent.
Because then I feel like in that area it's kind of puts us in a weird spot, because you don't necessarily want to escalate all the way to Dr. Brown, but also like having that relational status with the staff and just be like, hey, I see this, or I noticed that they might be with good intentions, but maybe not. I don't know. Like that's confusing.
Yeah, it depends if you're speaking as a parent or speaking as a board member. I mean, that's the hard part. If you notice something as a parent and you want to bring it to someone's attention, you have every right to do so.
Mm.
If you're speaking in your board capacity, that's where it gets a little bit more complex.
Mm-hmm.
That's That's my perspective. Other board members may have other thoughts. Or Emily, you may have other thoughts as well.
No, I think it's just trusting your judgment, and I think it's more about being mindful of not putting people on the spot. So if you do notice something, that you will follow up and ask teachers about it, or that you would take note of it and then, share it with whomever. But I also think that, like, if you have a good relationship with the principal, it's not like you should.
That's what I'm saying, like, it just gets really gray area to navigate.
I think it's just fair to say that it's a big area to navigate, and that it's like, you can also, your personal relationships are always going to bleed in, and I think that it's probably gonna be just a gut check until something happens that makes us want to come back to the policy and say, oh, wow, we hadn't thought about that one, so we might need to update it, but until then, I totally get the concern, but.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the question, right? Trying to figure out how to walk that space. I think this is an important thing.
Yeah.
I keep trying to go back to the idea that as a board governance team, our job is not to be in the day-to-day operations. So it may be something I want to say because I can see something like, no, you got to hear this, but then trying to figure out what the appropriate avenue is the next level. So yeah, it's personal relationships, it's what we know to be true or what we think to be true. It's a host of those things.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter, I like how Emily said it, we may have to come back to the policy and be like, we didn't think about that, let's add that in.
I just see like how it could be like even like me as a parent could say something through the parent caregiver lens, and still because of my decision as a board, it's still gonna be.
Of course. Yeah.
So
yeah, there's no getting around it.
Okay.
I walk in to pick up family and people assume I'm there in my board capacity, even though I'm picking up a niece.
Yeah.
Right, there's no way around that. Or maybe there is, maybe we'll have to wear capes or something.
I don't think it makes sense.
Invisible cloaks, we can live into that. So, the language for me isn't perfect, but it's for me good enough to bring to the full board for discussion, get more eyes on it, more conversation, more suggestions. I wouldn't want to hold it up another month. Let's just put it forward and see how people are responding to it. If that is good.
Yeah.
Does that work? All right, so Emily will put it up for a first reading. It won't be tomorrow, obviously.
The 28th.
I would say the 28th, but I would like to caution my board colleagues, let's also see what's on the agenda or what sort of, depending on how the budget season is going, let's decide if this is a priority or not, if that works. But tentatively the 28th. Fantastic, then we'll keep moving on, 4.2. This is Dan, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna review it quickly, if that's all right.
Please do.
All right, so looked at different districts. I think Central ISLIP was closest to this, and it came up. That district came up in a number of searches about naming policy as well. Ultimately, the Board of Education is responsible for naming district facilities. Can take into account a person with significant and definable connections to history, academic programs, public service, development priorities. The board is also can work on selecting building plaques, signage, or other memorials, and facility is defined as, in this policy, district-owned buildings, grounds, of course, athletic fields, outdoor areas, identifiable portions of buildings, and other areas. Criteria for naming, public trust and district values. It should, of course, reflect positively on the Ithaca City School District. Connections to the district or community can relate to history, planning, construction, renovation, or development, advancement of public education, and so on, basically. One of the question everyone asks is, can it be a living person? That seems to be, and there isn't a law that says it cannot be a living person. In my research, in New York City, there is a commissioner regulation that has said that in the New York City area, they won't choose a living person. And some of the language that I read So the dangers of choosing a living person, of course, are if there's a change in reputation, or something happens that alters the community's perception of that person. But there is no law that says it can't be a living person. It does say that as a general rule, it's a good practice not to name after a living person. Okay. So other things. Superintendent of schools, I'm going to skip around a little bit here. Superintendent of schools is authorized to develop administrative regulations and establish procedures. Superintendent or designee shall maintain a file of submitted proposals to be reconsidered if a new facility arises. Naming proposals may occur in exec session. Final action shall be taken by the board in a public session, of course. And then upon approval of a facility name, the superintendent of schools or designee shall oversee the implementation of plaques, signage, and memorials. And of course, reservation of authority. Nothing in this policy should be construed to obligate the board to approve any naming proposals. The board, of course, has the right to approve, deny, modify, revoke, or rename any facilities. Emily, I looked at your comments too. I wrote some comments on the side, and I tried to incorporate some of the language where I could. And I'm happy to do more edits as well, if you'd like. I appreciate your feedback. Yeah, so that's it.
Reactions, thoughts, questions, discussion points.
I would follow up on two of the questions that I had in there. I was thinking about one or two specific circumstances that I think is what kind of led us to think about this policy, where there wasn't an explicit, we have a facility that we want to name, we welcome ideas, but then a community member kind of brought that up in the first place, and even the idea of naming that specific facility, which is why I asked, like, who can initiate the proposal. Like, are we open to that happening? And then we need to talk about what the process would be for, like, a consideration of whether we even want to name it before we think about who it would be named by, or do we want to, let's say, kind of what you indicated, that it's like either the school board decision or the superintendent's decision, and that people know that they can bring it to us as an idea, but that, I'm talking about whether it can be a formalized thing.
I would imagine with the communication we have with the public, it probably would bubble up naturally through the school board members. Like maybe the example you're sharing with me.
But I guess do we want to say, like, it's under the it's the decision of the superintendent of the school board or whomever about whether a facility is going to be named, and when that decision is made, the public will be made aware? Or are we explicitly saying, like, if you've identified a facility that you think could be a good place to be named and want to, like, make an argument for that, we could just, if without putting anything in, or just allowing it to kind of be how it is now, which it seems like it was fine and made us think about this. So I guess I'm just generally proposing without any strong feelings either way about whether we want to almost prohibit that or discourage that, encourage it, or just not talk about it.
I'm of the mindset, what I appreciated what Central Islip did as I understood it, which was that there was a form and a proposal that needed additional signatures and a rationale and sort of additional community support that then came to the board. I would not have this rest to the superintendent. I think that's a difficult place for any superintendent, right? And I'm thinking long term, like, if I'm a new superintendent, this isn't the thing that I want. If it's controversial, I don't want it. I want this. The board should have that. But I think the idea would be that there's some sort of form, some sort of process that is made to the board to consider a renaming, and then that goes through some sort of vote or vetting.
Yeah.
There's other districts that even had hearings, right? Which I think is not a bad. I mean, for me, I would make this not onerous, but I would make it so there's multiple steps and public input. And the harsh reality is I'm thinking about a number of current instances where folks had renamed schools and renamed holidays and, did all this within like a week. And so thinking about also the renaming or what happens, it's gonna bring me to my second point in a minute, but that's probably what I'm thinking. So I don't know if we're in agreement, but the question I support, for me, I think we need to outline the process.
Yeah, I think we're talking about slightly different things. I totally agree with you about like the process for making recommendations. I'm thinking more about the idea for a recommendation of even if something should be named. So like renaming of something or the process, like we want to name this is the kind of somewhat onerous process, but the idea of just like I'm imagining myself as a community member. It was like a gym that that somebody was talking about. That as far as I know, nobody had talked explicitly at the district level about naming that gym ever. So if I, as a community member, felt like, oh, I need to go out, I need to get signatures, I need to and then have them come here and not say, we don't approve the name, but like, oh, we would have never considered naming that facility in the first place. It seems like there needs to be a step for that.
So it's not wasted energy or
right, which is why I'm saying, like, do we want to be clear that you can't just suggest random, so that we have people coming and be like, I'm gonna name a library, what about this, what about that?
Would agree not to open us up to people selecting the space. Actually, the law says that the Board of Education controls the school property, the custody and control. So I would think because of that law, the board should pick what spaces and then the form.
But do we want people to even bring ideas? I know I'm like I just want to make sure that we're like explicit or not about that, so that if we want to just be like, please don't ever come to us.
What's the alternative though?
So I think it's either explicitly like, if you've identified a space that you think you'd like for us to consider naming something, are we giving you an opportunity? Like, are we explicitly saying, here's the avenue with which you can make that recommendation? Or are we saying, we never want to hear in a formalized way, like it is always going to be the district or whomever that's making a decision about whether we're even going to be considering naming something? Or the third option is what we have now, which is we're not really explicit about it, and if ideas come, they come, and if not, and maybe that's fine, but I didn't know.
I think we might be put in a difficult situation if we didn't even draw the parameters about the space. We'd be in the position where we'd have to say no a lot more to the public.
Right, about
they would say like, we want to name something,
Right.
I don't know, maybe our Hancock, maybe like our facilities building.
Right.
It would put us more in a difficult spot with
And
community
we don't want them
requests,
to
I
ever
would
think that they need to fill out a bunch of forms in order to.
Would we like every year, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
So maybe can we consider at the beginning of the school year, maybe a couple of facilities that we might consider to be
I
named?
think it'll be that frequent, is it? Like, I feel like it's pretty.
I think
But
our policy, we're gonna increase the like.
Right, well, that's part of what I'm concerned, like, that's part of what why I wanna be explicit about.
that might be the difference between renaming existing spaces and naming
Right,
new
yes.
spaces, like I'm thinking of our STEM wing. That will be open in September.
And then that brings up another thing, like, if suddenly people are thinking about the policy and they're like, you know what, I've never liked the name of such and such's
Right.
name on there. Do we wanna say anything in here that's like, once a facility, I mean, I've already answered my own question, because of course not, because if it becomes like an offensive name or something, but how do we also say like, don't come to us every single year and make a suggestion to change the name of a facility that we only named 3 years ago, So is there like a time frame? Or we just hope that these things don't happen all that often, just leave it out of policy, which I also think is.
Or we could, hearing what you're saying, I'm rethinking the idea of a policy that simply states something to the effect of the naming, renaming of spaces, the authority to name or rename spaces shall lie with the Board of Education. Period.
And period.
And we just discuss.
So then you're saying that then we as a board, without it being in policy, could say. We're thinking about like renaming here community, we have this form we'd like for you to fill out and not have it in policy.
Maybe it's we've done like a practice too. We've done when we did the snow policy around emergency closures, we have the policy and then we have the practice. Maybe we could write what Sean's saying in one sentence and then have.
I think that's it. I mean, or a second sentence, the board reserves the right to ask for additional information. And that is, we don't necessarily need to clarify what that is, but that then becomes the form, so it doesn't need to be specified in policy. I mean, I'm hearing exactly what you're saying, right? So to ask folks to do all this work, if there's a space that we're Belsham,
Yeah.
someone says, I want to rename Belsham, right? And so right. So should we be able to say early on before anything is done, the board will not consider that,
Exactly.
right? And so there's no need to fill out the form, there's no need to get signatures, there's no need to do anything. At this point in time, the board's not, so it'd be, not to say preemptive, but to stop that.
But what
conversation.
would then qualify a facility or space to be up for renaming or naming?
The board's discretion.
Yeah.
And
So everything will fall under pretty much.
I'm not saying it's a great idea, I'm just thinking it through. Because otherwise, I think we have to outline and stipulate every single thing, and that makes me. Sometimes the gray is even a little bit better, right? So. A couple spaces we've been asked, right? I mean, we can say one was a school library, right? So have been asked to rename the school library. So we could do our research, is it even something we consider? Thank you, we're not going to consider it at this point in time. Or we would consider it if you did these following things. But we don't need to specify all those in policy. But that's one solution. Or the other one that we've been asked, right? Would we consider doing that? The board can have a conversation and it doesn't get back to the person at this point in time, we're not going to consider that requesting very much. Right? It doesn't even have to rise to saying, I mean, it may be on an agenda as a vote, and it may not, especially if there's personnel related to it as well, some other thing.
But then maybe we can add something that says like, if we are considering, we can make it up to the public to know ahead of time.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Or that could be, and even, if the board will consider, please know there'll be an ask for additional information, including a public hearing.
Yeah, or even, I'm actually, I don't know if you, I know that we all looked at the central ISLIC a little bit, but now that I'm looking at it, all of the information that we got, or that at least that I pulled from it, is on their website, and I'm actually not seeing a policy. It seems like they just have a form on their website, which
That is correct.
is nice. I mean, if we wanted to maintain a lot of the stuff that was pulled, or if we wanted it to be public somehow, this could be just so you know, this is going to be the board's process whenever they do decide to name a facility. But that the policy itself, which I do think it would be nice to have, just to limit questions, could be as simple as.
I think just a clarification of who's making the decision is helpful, and I think it should lie with the Board of Education.
yes,
And I do think saying something like that, like again, the board reserves the right to ask for additional information. And or not entertain require, I mean, you can find fancier language or language is a little nicer than saying we won't entertain the request, but right, hearing it that way, I think an oversimplification of the policy is best.
sure.
And then Katie, we could make a page on the website similar to this, maybe, that would allow for a form to be submitted or something.
Have you seen that, or have we sent that to you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I'd be in favor of that. I think that simplifies the process and minimizes some labor that may not have to happen if we're not even going to consider, or if we don't even know a space is already named. As a board member, then we do some research and like, oh, that library in fact was named years ago.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
All right, so then that means the rewriting.
It sounds like
Yeah.
Control delete.
a lot of delete.
So
Start fresh. Start with a
But
clean
save it,
page.
because we will
Yeah,
probably use it for.
So let me see if I understand if we're in agreement, right? That we're in agreement that the board reserves the right for any naming, renaming, whatever language I think is here is good. And if the board is considering a request, additional information and possible public hearings will happen. Something similar to that. Is that? Is that fair? Does that seem like a really good way to move forward that without specifying everything else, we can just go that route?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm in complete support of that. Real simple, real basic. And it doesn't have to change all the time depending,
Sure.
you know,
Makes
10
sense.
years from now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It even has in here, like, you included, like, the superintendent is authorized to develop administrative regulations consistent with this policy to establish procedures for the submission, review, and consideration of facility naming proposals, so I don't know if we would change it from super, I don't know, I think that if you basically use that and like a few of the top lines that you had in here.
Yeah, we can just check that language.
I like that part too, yeah.
Dan, any other questions for us about hearing some of this? I know it's
No,
happening rapid fire. We also have an
No.
expert note taker.
no, I will ask, yeah, I will certainly ask Emily for some notes as well. Yeah,
All right.
so, yeah.
I'm in full support. Thank you for that. That makes me feel
Yeah.
much better. I've been
Yeah.
confused about that, and that really helped me. So fantastic. Great. Keep it moving.
Yeah,
District wellness. And looking at my notes, I'm unsure of what the actual question was. I know I had two questions. I very much like the idea at one point in time of just adding the -P, but then I was confused that one policy is student wellness and one is about district wellness. And I don't know where we left it. My notes from March 3rd don't sort of indicate where we left it and where we may end up.
The notes I had from the last meeting was, I believe you said, in reading them more closely, I'm not sure if we need the one passed in 2006. The 2006 one requires the establishment of district-wide wellness advisory committee. You said you wanted to learn more and can't find anything in my notes to directly address this. So I have in my notes that you didn't have anything in your notes. If that's helpful.
Just put me on the spot. This week.
I still kind of stick with what my suggestion was, which is, I think we should, which is to add the P, and I would change student wellness to ICSD wellness policy, because it is like in direct reference to what it's saying, or if we wanted to change, no, I don't think we should change that, actually, so, sorry. Yes, what I was originally saying, I think that they should both be ICSD wellness policy, and that is something that's like required by the state, so we do want that to be the name of it, like the wellness policy. And it really is, yes, the wellness policy relates specifically to student wellness, but that is kind of obvious, I think. And it really does just break down more specifically about how things that are included in this wellness policy are defined. The advisory committee is a thing that they put together every year. And I know that Carrie Burke recently, we emailed back and forth, and now I'm not me and Carrie, but I don't know, several, you were definitely on, I can't remember who was on the emails, but we emailed back and forth specifically about how they were putting that advisory committee together, which it seems like they do every year. And that is also supposed to inform the annual reporting to us, that I think that we are in the process of working with them to make sure that actually is happening on an annual basis.
So I'm having difficulty bringing the policy up, which is more about my computer than anything. So, but if I understand correctly, the first 5405 from 2006, to keep that as is, or to run it by some folks and see if we're still in line. And then the second one, which is student wellness, to rename Ithaca City School District Wellness Policy -P to turn into the protocol. So it would not be 5405, it'd be 5405
Yeah.
And with a renaming, so they're that. I'm okay with that. I think I'd obviously want to run that by Carrie and some other folks to make sure that works.
We should look back at, we did talk about, I do think that this policy was reviewed by them, because we were talking, we were asking a lot of questions about whether we were.
Both of them?
No, just the original 5405
Yep.
ICSD wellness policy, in addition. Yeah, I guess I agree with you that I don't think that one needs to be reviewed, but I do think that what we would make the P needs to be reviewed, only because I
It's
think that the new updated requirements probably are not updated in here unless we did have. I can't remember if she looked at this when we were,
Yeah, I'm trying to find the original email for that.
I don't think she did look at it. I think she only reviewed that the like school lunches policy for us, so. I do think well, I'm saying she, because I'm blanking on her name, what's her name again?
Beth Kraus.
Beth Kraus, yeah, so maybe if she.
I don't know if she did review this. one.
Yeah, I don't think she did, so
But I
if she
can-
could review this one. and
I
make
can
sure
review it
that
with
it's
her,
alignment.
yeah.
If I may,
Yeah.
there is an article from NISBA. The 2006 policy was adopted as a requirement for when federal law required it for when schools get subsidized school food programs. They had to adopt a wellness policy. That's in 2006.
Yeah.
And then in 2017, they released new guidelines for it. And that's
Right,
why we created the second policy.
yeah, and so that's why I'm
Okay.
saying I think that Beth needs to review it. I don't know, we keep pointing to you, that Beth needs to review it, as she just tell because the guidelines, like,
This is
not only the.
this is the one with like food and beverages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like specific, which
It
also
looks a
is
little- Looks like it could be condensed maybe a little bit.
not only that, but we should find out, I think because they change every year. Well, what you just said, condensed, but I mean, like, really, how can we show that we're updating it every year and that that we're following the general ethos while not having to change it every year when the guidelines change?
Or stating just that.
Right.
Right, that will
Yeah.
make sure we'll see. All right, so then the recommendation would be to keep 5405 ICSD wellness policy, if that's been reviewed and people are okay with it, and then to send along the second one that was passed, 2016 or 18? 17, of course, new two numbers like that. And that we want to turn that into the procedure, but we also want to make sure it's got the correct information, and if we can,
Yeah,
condense and or not specify with such. If we can use less specificity, the better. Just that we are keeping in line, and I do know that, right, those regulations have changed, as we did here as well.
Yeah, and when I spoke to Carrie about it, I think we did say we were gonna do much more than what we are actually legally required.
Yeah,
anyway.
let's not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds great.
Okay. So we're gonna send that to you and to Carrie and whoever else, or who are we sending that to?
I'm saying it's Beth right now, I can send it to Carrie also.
Yes,
Yeah, because I think Carrie is actually technically, but we got it.
okay.
Sorry.
Are we good there then? Fantastic, let's keep moving. 4.4, policy 4730, homework policy. I know Mary was hoping to join us today, is unable to join us, has some additional feedback. We can begin the conversation, we can table it until May. We can have a dialogue about what other information we may want to have. I will say the last time we did this policy, it was with full participation of a number of folks. It wasn't just the board that came up with the homework policy. We had a couple of meetings. We were working with our unions, both IPDA and ITA. So and there may be other unions that we want to have some dialogue with as well. But that's sort of that's how we got to where this policy is. So how do we want to proceed?
I personally don't feel comfortable touching this policy at all without talking extensively with our educators and
Yeah.
and I don't know. I know why this policy came up, and it was one comment by one educator who expressed, feelings about the general approach to homework.
Yep.
I don't know how much I even feel like an urgency unless I understand that educators across the board. I certainly don't think that board members, or I don't think as a single board member that I would want to dictate whether we want consistency or a policy at all.
I greatly appreciate that, and that's why I was trying to give an idea of how
Yeah,
involved the last policy was, because it wasn't just the board should not be, even though it's within our purview. I don't think board members should be dictating what a homework policy is without significant input and recommendation about instruction,
Yeah.
about curriculum, right? Could be
Yeah.
more than just notions of homework. So I'm happy to not touch it either, And maybe just put some feelers out there and see if folks feel like we need to be doing some work.
Yeah.
But it's not a priority for me.
Yeah, I think that in fairness to our board colleague who was interested in it, I think that we could do a few, like even just asking Catherine and other leadership at ITA to give us an idea. It's just even ever something that comes up. Like I know that it's a struggle for parents, but I think parents probably have equally as wide
Absolutely.
variety of ideas about it. So
My
yes, if we
struggle is
could-
I can't help my kid with their homework. That's my struggle.
geometry, can't do shapes.
All right, so we'll do some, is it feel okay by you, Madeline, as well?
Yeah.
Not urgency, but just some, questions to some union leadership and obviously central admin as well.
Sure. Yeah.
If it comes to the forefront that people really want us to do something, then we'll explore. But for right now, we don't need to put it back on the agenda. We'll just get some ideas and get some thoughts out there.
By email only, right?
Yeah, no meetings at this time. I can get it, or we got a budget to pass. So focus on that. Okay, does that work? Everyone's good with that? Great. I know we don't have student reps here. Last policy that's on the agenda, but they've been giving us all kinds of feedback. You probably didn't get a chance to see the message that I sent today. I know it's more complex than that. And I know from reading my notes, or not my notes, from reading the notes that Emily captured, thank you, that we said that we were going to do 3 things between the 23rd and today, which was define the primary purpose of the role, clarify its relationship to existing student representatives, and establish a realistic expectation and responsibilities. Those are conversations that we can have today. And then what I wrote earlier today is that for me, that also at the end of the day boils down to a couple of decisions, which is sort of the number of reps, how they're selected, and what is the role and responsibility. So I'm open to the best way to proceed because this has been with us for quite some time now. And I don't know if it's the board. Is it time for the board just to say this is what we're going to do? Here's what it looks like. So, how do we want to proceed?
I mean, I think chatting just amongst us, answering a few of the questions that you just laid out. I feel like we haven't even necessarily landed somewhere. And I hugely value all of the input that we've gotten from students, and I think that judging from the conversations, I feel like we've gotten a pretty, like the most important things continue to be kind of brought to the forefront.
Yep.
It was really helpful, and now, we need to provide some parameters for ourselves and for them.
Thoughts, Madeline? Or
I think I'm confused from our last meeting.
yeah. Well, we have been going in some circles.
Yeah. Because my understanding was the student ex officio role is part of the board. So if we look at it through those lens, then doesn't it have to follow governance structure? And if not, then are we just talking about student representation and advocacy? Because I feel like it's important to separate those two in order to then determine what do we want or what expect from the student to help us with what kind of information that would be beneficial for us. I think that right there is like where we need to start. Because
well, I'll say that I've changed my perspective on this since the start of our conversations. I was viewing it originally as actual ex officio member, right? The way in which it's been identified in other committees and other governance bodies. From talking with students and some of the conversation we have, I'm more aligned with the idea that it is a student. What's the word you just used? Not students want a voice. Students want a place to voice. Thank you, student advocacy. They want a place to advocate for things that they think are important.
right.
So I'm leaning much more towards that path at this moment than where I was at any other point in time and talking about this policy. Of thinking about the ex officio member as a student advocacy role. Because that's what I've heard from students over and over again.
Yeah.
No matter how they think about some of the other things, they're pretty clear that they do not want to be part of the board, or they want
Right.
they want the ability to advocate.
So then we're just talking about then what is in place right now, which is the student reps, which is what we have. Right?
That's what I think the students want, with some modifications, some changes.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Questions about representation, we've been talking about questions about selection, is it an election process?
Mhm.
But I got the impression from the students that we've talked to that they're interested in some form that currently exists. Maybe the numbers change, but again, I could have all this wrong. You all been doing more work and meeting with more people. I'm just saying what I've heard from some students with my conversations with them. This is one of those things where I think it's a policy that I think we're overthinking.
Yeah.
I do too,
Yeah.
but I think unfortunate. I think that one of the challenges is that yes, it's something that people care about a lot and for different reasons. And so I think that if we, like, I keep wishing that we're just like, had never had them and could just like feel, like, I think then it would be very,
A
very
clean slate.
easy. But because we're not, I feel like it's extremely messy because there's a lot of completely valid feelings and personal experiences and like like kind of like there's just a lot of feelings, and I think that that's become like pretty challenging to focus on like a policy, which is supposed to be kind of somewhat objective and to be meeting a very specific goal, and then also making sure. I mean, I got some feedback recently about like just like the look of what it would look like to like reduce the number of student reps and how that would like that could be perceived as like the board silencing students, and that's where I'm like I'm between like I would never want to, and so I want to replace like this with something equally as good or an opportunity for even more students, while also acknowledging the things that we see as just like practical challenges of having 7 people sitting here, or of having lots of students like weighing in on the endless amounts of things that we already have to sit here and talk about until like 9 o'clock. And so I personally am having I'm having like cognitive dissonance about between the things that I just feel like would make it a strong, effective new policy that worked well within the confines of the work that we do, and also caring very deeply about people's feelings and perspectives about what it is now and what it's doing and how it could be better. And do we integrate all of that into one policy, or do we say, we heard these 2 things, our policy has to be this, and then, I kind of wish that Dr. Brown can have a advisory council, because we could create that and be geniuses.
For me, that's kind of like the way I think about it is, and how the students have said themselves in the meetings that it's kind of almost impossible to be able to reach out to all students, especially at the high school. But we already have certain groups already formed within the high school, so I feel like for me, it will be good to even have a conversation. I'm just gonna say it's not a good idea or not, but just to have a conversation of like, okay, there are students that go through the process of being elected by the student body, and then having like students be like, for example, like the Dr. Brown's advisory council, have somebody being selected from their group to represent them, and then another example like the village at Ithaca, having somebody there, because for me, on the other end, every student I ask, even my own children, about the elections, I said, go in, have you heard anybody, you know who's running? They have no clue. No clue. They don't know anything about it. So for me, is the question, how do we help facilitate that outreach, and not even on the student's hand, but help them, I guess, allocate those students and bring them over, invite them to the table so they can feel like, hey, this is, something that I can do and show up, and then based on the group or the community that they just represent.
No, you're exactly right, but you're laying out like an issue with like everything, like the student council, I'm sure, like could do much. It could have additional opportunities and ways to read
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
the like advisory council, so it's
But I
this
feel like they already, like, they have a good structure already with it.
advisory,
Yeah.
yes, for sure, well, that's why it's like, are we repeating it, we're, yes,
Yeah,
sorry, I don't mean
yeah.
to cut you off.
No, but it's like, it's, to me, it's kind of like what we're looking to create here with this, with the reps and the ex officio. I feel like the student advisory already has a good head start and a good baseline to help and so it's kind of like, why not take advantage of it instead of just saying like, no, we just, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we should create an opportunity to where other groups can be like, okay, maybe I missed the process or I didn't hear about the process, or this is more of like, some students have said, popularity contest. But they can also be like, well, I'm part of this group, you know, and I'm able to have the opportunity to show up and express, you know, whatever concerns that we're having, because they show that they wanna be part of it.
Maybe there's a medium between the two of these, right? And one of the things I've been thinking about as well, especially when having conversations about representation. So maybe the idea, I'm just gonna use Ithaca High School first, and get to LACS.
Mhm.
Maybe this May, Ithaca High School has an election for 2 student reps that are sort of you know, whatever. If we keep the number of 4, they elect 2 at large the body, and then 2 are appointed from the student advisory the superintendent student advisory council. So it's still a total of 4, but there's a little bit more ability to reach a wider representation in that regard, and have the superintendent's advisory council work out how they select who the 2 like and like however you all want to come away with it. But I would feel a little bit better about both a general election for part of it and an appointee, or appointees would make me feel much better, and we sort of keep the same process. So it'd still be 4 students that are at the table, and we'll work through the dialogue and discussion part. But that's something that maybe we can consider, because it would seem to be a median between everything that we're hearing.
I wonder, I have no idea like what the time commitment is to be on that advisory council, and if that would be like burdensome to be a representative for both.
Great question.
But I feel like when they came in, they showed
I mean, they
interest,
did,
and
no, for
and
sure.
they came like with a full report of
For
what they do
sure,
and how they
but
work
like
it.
those guys are like the leadership on there, and it sounds like they're doing like a massive, so then I'm just like, I don't know, I think that like this keeps coming down to the like, this challenge of reaching as many students as possible is not unique to this role, as we know.
Or this policy, right?
Or this policy or anything else, so like, how is the principal doing it? Like, how are teachers making sure they understand the needs of all of these populations? Like, it's hard for us to be thinking about it from like, we need to solve this problem for like the 4 or 7 kids that sit here and how they're reaching, like, it's too big of a challenge. And I do hear our student reps saying like, we're doing our best, we're sending out surveys, we're doing it. And so it's like, maybe we're putting so much onus on like 4, again, I think that LICS is just totally different. But like, we're putting so much onus on like 4 kids and being like, you need to reach everybody, whereas like.
Our systems aren't even placed to help them do that.
Yeah, like where are those systems? And I'm not saying that they're not there, but like maybe. What are we actually requiring of this role versus what if we kind of have these conversations allowed us to kind of resurface or highlight how broken down these systems might be, or that we don't know about all the systems that are there, or what the, you know, even like administrators and teachers, like they connect with all of these students in different ways. Like maybe again putting the onus on like, it's on like the school to figure out how to build a system that allows for even if they were just like random students, like allows for those students to hear from the people who should, not saying they are, I have no idea, already be doing that work and reaching these students to be able to get that information and basically bring it. Like, are we treating them as spokespeople or like these incredible like organizers who need endless amounts of time to be able to go into a school that size and like reach every you know what I mean?
But then also, is it fair then to ask for a student to be considered in the representation role being that they have, you know, the academics, the after school activities and all of that, then it's kind of like, is it really fair that that's not, you know what I mean? Like that, then that's not, then unable to do, that's an unrealistic expectation. I
To
guess.
do the like to,
Yeah,
do
so
that.
then it's
Right,
like,
exactly.
then do we want the student that is an ex officio to just be, that's the after school activity, like just to be an ex officio student reps and make sure that he's gathering, you know what I mean? Like,
well, that, yeah, I mean, I think, yes,
the
I
role
totally
itself
agree.
is-
That's where it's like,
yeah.
maybe the things that need to be built do
Mhm.
not need to be built in the
Yeah.
policy. What needs to be built is, we're telling you that we're asking 4 students from your school
Mhm.
to come here and represent the needs of your school. Now you, like the leader of Ithaca High School, and figure out a way to make sure that
Yeah.
these students are getting access to all of these important groups that you were talking about,
Yeah,
that they're collaborating with, you know, the advisory council and, you know, whatever. And we're not, there's so many student
Yeah.
groups that we're not even talking
Yeah,
about,
sure,
you
yeah.
know, that there's tons of groups that I don't even know. Like, we know about the village,
Yeah.
thank goodness that group has like a
yeah,
meaningful way, but there's lots of other groups that are completely, so,
So I'm noticing a theme here.
Sorry.
No, I think it's, again, you're helping me get clarity. And the theme for the other policies is that we're saying less is more. And so a student ex officio policy that said the board will accept 4 student reps from Ithaca High School and 3 student reps from LACS, and you all figure it out.
right, the expectations are X, Y, and Z about ways in which you
Right.
set up a system, but that's.
And maybe LACS's student handbook is a model.
Mhm.
They, you know, have a really good 12-page handbook about the election process and the expectations and removal and what's expected of someone. Maybe we say in the meantime to Ithaca High School, your job is to develop something similar
Yeah.
that I think you're right. I think we're trying to solve a massive problem
Yeah.
from the single policy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we cannot do that.
Right.
And so the idea would be, we're hoping that we give you freedom and flexibility to help to collaborate with us about how to make this happen. And the reality is that, you know, I know the policy states this in the legislation, but as a board, I don't even think it's right to sort of dictate to a school how your process should take place, right? If you're trying to send us students to help us make informed decisions, which is the purpose of the policy,
yeah.
That's on you.
then
Yeah.
you all figure out, or let's work together to figure out what that is and create a plan that we think is that's more equitable than it currently is.
But what do we do when we get feedback from students saying, well, I'm not aware?
Yeah.
Or I know
Yeah,
this
we're-
person and I didn't even know that you was involved in it.
Yeah.
Or-
I think that's the point, it's on the leadership, it is building leadership who needs to, because then, you know, I think about like how much like, frankly, like kind of attacking they've had to like deal with in these conversations about like, you're not hearing from everybody, you're not bringing the right stuff, and instead of it being on them, it's like, this is on school leadership in the same.
I don't feel like it's attacking, I feel like it's a way that we need to collaborate, it's all of us, I'm not saying it should be all of them. And I'm not
just
saying it
talking
should
about
be
how their experience.
well in the executive, but I'm saying like, I think it's important for us to put a structure in place to help them then navigate within those walls, right? Of how to bring, like the outreach and bring people over and have more of like a better idea that just to have students come here and say like, well, I'm not really a part of it, or I don't really hear from you, I don't really see you, so then what about them?
Yeah,
I think, sorry,
Yeah,
I was just gonna, I think that we definitely in a policy can say like what our like, we want to make sure that you, the school,
Mhm.
are setting up a policy that is ensuring, and we've done a lot of this in the policy that we have, that this and this happens, like, we want to be very explicit
Mhm.
about our expectations. that
Yeah, that's
those
what I
are being
mean,
heard.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you, it's just not us then that's solving that problem.
Right,
It's
right.
them that's solving
Mhm,
that problem. And then at some point, you need to let go a little bit, cause it's like,
Yeah,
you know, we can only do so much.
I'm in complete agreement with that idea that the policy can set expectations. There's an expectation that there will be representation. There's an expectation that there will be significant outreach. There's an expectation that students would be present and fulfilling their responsibilities. The details of what that looks like, I think we've been trying to put into policy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we've been getting caught up, and it may not be I think you're right about letting go. It may not be our role to dictate what the details are,
Yeah,
other than saying the board wants to ensure, again, representation, the board wants to ensure a wide range of student voices, the board wants to ensure.
diverse representation.
Yeah.
And then say, you help us, you all can create whatever policy or program you want, but these are the expectations and the parameters by which we are expecting our student reps to come from. And we look forward to collaborating with you and how best to make that happen.
That's what I said, you just said it better.
No, you said it better. It's helping me. This is my point about less is more. I mean, I really enjoy this policy committee because I think we've been trying to do too much, and probably rather than saying, here are some clear expectations, and then the rest, right, will not work out, but it makes it easier to change the policy as long as we know exactly where the authority lies. Right. And who's creating and crafting something is about all we should maybe be asking for.
Sure.
And same thing in LACS. We don't even have to make, like, they've already done it for what that works for them. Same thing. We're, for all of them, we're interested in representation, we're interested in the selection process or the election process, whatever that looks like. But maybe the idea would be for us to meet with building leadership and see if they're okay. Like, I also want to thrust it on them. Are you okay with this? And you work with your students to come up with a process. You have 4 slots to bring to the board next September.
And I think we could even put a line in there to just kind of a CYA, a little bit of like, we could put a line in there that say like the board reserves the right to request like a self-evaluation of the school, basically. Like, if we heard from a lot of students, like, we're never being reached, nobody's talking about the issues we care about, the board can at least like indicate that it like has the authority to say, hey, IHS, like, we're getting a lot of this feedback, like, we'd love to hear about the data, like get a report out, or for you to re-review your practice and make sure that it's adequately.
I'd say it stronger than that. I'd say the board reserves the right to appoint any and all student reps or ex officio members. That is within the law.
But that's again putting it like, who would we do, instead of like, hey, you kind of made like it's not really working. Like, did you really think about like what student groups, can you reflect on this? What student groups are you still not reaching and why? Like, what do you think you can do to change the process?
So this is almost like how we got to presentations for international travel. Right? I mean, that's what it was. We were recognizing that there was not, a significant number of folks that were accessing that opportunity. And so we're like, you need to come present to us how you're going to do it to most folks. Again, I'm down. The point was not overthinking. I think you're right. Where we're trying to merge as much feedback and try to put something together again, and we're doing it partly in a vacuum and partly with just part of the information. I'm in complete support of finding some language that says something like that. I'd like to run it by Dan. I don't know if that'd be you or if that'd be Mary or who we would talk to about running it by high school administration.
I can help. I worked with Keith and Karen a little bit at the beginning of this process. And I'd be happy to do that for sure.
So
I'm sure they would be supportive.
Well, I also want to give them space to be like, no, we're not sure we want to get into that as well, because that raises some politics for them too, and I'm aware of that, right?
Okay.
But I just want to, just so we're clear, if we can, I'm just thinking the things that I know about that the board has some interest, not interests, but we want to expand representation. We want to think more about either the election or the selection process. What other things are we, or are we even in agreement on those two?
Say that again.
Like, if we're going to say what the parameters are, right? And so we're saying we're working with high school administration.
Right.
One of the things the board is thinking about is how do we increase representation? How do we think more about a selection or election process that is more equitable? Those are two things that I've heard a couple times. Not to, tip the scale, but just saying things for us to consider and think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the second one is like a more practical thing. The first one is a more like value statement. So I almost feel like
We don't do the second one.
the value statements, and then it's like yeah, that obviously means that you need to have an
Okay.
election that's going to, I don't know, that's
Yep,
how I would.
again, I'm on board with a bunch of ideas today, right? So
I feel like they're in, like we listed.
we listed these already.
Um,
And also, is it fair is that the balance between LACS and IHS? LACS having 3 for what, 200 and something students
Yeah.
versus what, 1,300?
1,500, yes.
It's kind of like, well, it's again, it's not set up for success for 3 or 4 students just to try to cover as much diversity
Yeah,
and outreach.
I don't even know how we got to 3, to be honest, because I don't think it always has been 3.
From the LACS.
Yeah,
I think if
think
you
it
know, if
added-
it hasn't, then it would be.
it definitely
more
has not.
Palatable.
I feel like
reduction.
it's grown.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well, maybe we should talk about 4 and 2, just looking just at raw numbers that. Like,
I would
That would work.
take on that argument.
I don't know, I feel like the high school probably needs more.
oh,
Oh, no, I can't. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did I say that out loud? And I don't mean it that way. I'm saying it's already, it's already a lot of folks added to the table. So I wouldn't feel good adding more. I think there may be a way in which to use some of the resources we already have.
I'm not saying adding more, I mean like, if instead of 3 from LACS, we do 2, then adding that person from the IHS instead of
what do you think,
eliminating the seat.
what do you think that would do to like add one more person?
I just feel like it's almost unfair for the 4 students to try to cover as much in different areas in such a big school versus having 3 covering a smaller group of students and having all this support and access to when the high school students I feel can use more of that support.
Do you mean, when you say area, like,
I mean
you mean areas, like the topics or the people?
I mean like the LACS have 200 versus 1,300, you know what
So
I
you're
mean?
talking about them like accessing the people?
Right.
The only thing I would challenge about that is there are still significant groups of LACS students that are also marginalized
Mhm.
and would not feel that they're represented. And so
Right.
even with 3, they're still gonna face the exact same thing.
Mhm.
And so then you bring it down to 2, and then there's a larger number of.
But then it's just the difference between I guess LACS and IHS is kind of like you still have it's an unfair amount
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
versus
I guess that's where I think this distinction to me is very important, is that we're actually taking that, in my head, I'm like taking that heavy responsibility of like, oh my gosh, there's only 4 of you and you need to reach all of these people.
Yeah.
Because instead, we're asking the school, like, there's no way that 4 or 5 students are gonna be able to reach all those people. So it's on the school to set up a system where like that information may be being collected by 10 people or 15, all of
in
these different
support of
groups.
the
In support,
yeah,
right, so
yeah.
that's why I'm like,
Mhm.
you have 2, you have 4, you have
Mhm,
6, you're
mhm.
still not gonna reach them all.
Mhm.
Especially if we're not like, pick one from each
Yeah,
student
yeah,
group,
yeah.
not that we could even identify groups
Yeah.
like that. So instead, it really is like so much goes into what the school does to make it meaningful. And we really treat these 4 people as spokespeople for, all of the other groups that they're able to hear from not because they're going out and talking to them, but because they're being fed, I would like to think, a ton of information from all of these systems that would be put in place in all these other student groups who are collecting that information. And then they're just the ones that get to come sit here and talk with us, which is exciting, but it's not on them to be the ones that are directly trying to build those connections.
I'd be inclined to move forward as one board member with a 4-2 model moving forward. And make that known. I think 2 provides adequate support for our LACS. They're still gonna have the exact same questions we're talking about. So the difference is their system and their form of governance, self-governance allows for more interaction in that way. And keep the 4 at Ithaca High School with an expectation that we create some other systems that support their outreach where they're not because right now I agree, I feel like they feel like they're taking a lot of heat as if they're not doing outreach, and I know a number of them are.
Yeah.
And it's not set up for them to be in certain spaces, right? And it may not even be their responsibility.
Right.
So how we do that will be something that I think we can work on.
On the policy and put it on the policy. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the concern. We don't meet again until May. Elections will be happening in May. So it may mean that we at least have to jump onto a Zoom call with IHS leadership to have a conversation about this conversation we just had. And see if we're all on the same page and see
Okay.
how they can make that happen,
Okay.
if that's agreeable to folks. It doesn't have to be all of us, but at least, I think, it sounds like we're in somewhat of agreement about a model and having other folks help us
Yeah.
create what this model looks like. But we'll hold on to at least 4 from Ithaca High School. I would recommend 2 from LICS, whether we're on the same page or not, that we can work on at a later date.
I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
And then
We'll
there's
jump on
probably
with
like
LACS to Keith.
Yeah.
Again, great.
And if Keith has strong pushback, I'm sure the students will, but
Yeah.
I do feel like they do.
All right.
I think you're right, there is an imbalance, they do have a lot of voice and
Mhm.
and we definitely were at 2 at one point in time, and I'll find, or I will ask someone I know to look back at some minutes and see.
Well, the current policy says that IHS shall send no more than 4 representatives
Yep.
and LACS shall send no more than 2 representatives.
There we go. There it is. Yeah.
There you go.
Um,
And I think, did I write that policy?
yes, you did. Well done, well done.
2013? Sounds right.
Um,
Seems like it shifted in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it happened, I know when it happened. It happened, we had a couple of reps that were sharing the responsibility, and then it just sort of became a thing.
Got it.
so then, I mean, I know we don't have time now, but I guess like the other things that we need to make a decision on are. What was I just thinking? Like. Participation. Like that's still like a big question, like are we rotating, are we inviting?
Oh, that's
them
what I
to
was gonna
be-
say. Do we want them to comment on the topics we talking about?
Not all of them, that's.
But you know what I mean, like
I do.
if we're gonna make a decision or we're thinking about something, isn't that like?
Yes,
we
for
want
sure,
from-
yeah.
We have gone in different iterations, there, depending on who the board reps are. They have been very vocal and participatory in our board meetings. Some more than others throughout time. I think that's something that we can work on if we want to elect one spokesperson for a meeting that sort of has the floor, the privilege of the floor,
Mm.
or it's or we work it out in real time. Okay, so
I mean, I'm thinking about any of us, like you are, like.
so there's a difference between the board, the student updates.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
the student reports is different than when we then get to the actual business of the meeting. That there's been one student from each school that's been identified to be able to have the privilege of the floor.
So that's gonna be in addition to the student reps.
Or no, it'd be one of the student reps. One of the student reps each meeting gets,
No, but I'm saying it will be in addition to like how we have the student reps comments.
yes,
It will be then a person that they elect to then be
Yep.
part of the conversation for the rest of the meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
yep, we're talking about whatever it is. And they've done a good job of sharing it. I mean, they're using technology pretty clearly in the meetings with each other. So they have a good job of saying, so-and-so, would you please ask this question? That we've seen happen, or so-and-so, would you please not ask any more questions, right? So that has happened as well. So I think we can add that into it as well. All right, so can we create, for lack of a better word, a fresh document to Emily's point, almost to start from scratch with some of the ideas we're talking about, but where we're not. Some things we've already decided, right? Some of the pro forma language that's up front. But some of this other stuff, I think, if we're trying to rewrite what we've already written, it's not gonna help us get to where we wanna be at. So I would start with a fresh document. Let's reach out to admin.
Sure.
And see where we're at. And I do think some of these other things we can capture pretty quickly.
Mhm.
1 year terms, we sort of
Yeah.
agreed to, junior didn't matter, right? It could be sophomore, junior
Not
standing,
freshman.
yeah, and we'll go from there. Does that work?
And I do wanna come back to the like requirements for participation. Like,
Yes.
in totally recognizing that they don't need to be here all the time, but also recognizing that we have some
Yes.
people who are not here more than they are
Mhm.
here.
Yep, and that's something that we've heard from a couple of students
Yeah.
as well. It's very similar to board members, like, 3 meetings in a row, then there's, And that is also in the LACS policy, so we can take a look at that.
Yeah.
So there's some things, but I think you're right, we can specify
Yeah.
in the policy generally, not school specific.
Good.
Progress. So happy.
So who's taking it first?
I'm gonna, if you all don't mind, I put a lot of work on Emily's plate. And I'm gonna ask Emily to help us with this as well.
I'd love to. I'd
Emily,
love a clean document.
Emily is a magician in this area, so if it's okay, Emily, and I know you probably can't tell me no on camera. But
Turn the camera off, Matt. No, I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to.
that'd be very helpful for us. Yep.
Great.
Does that work good, folks?
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. That is the end of our agenda. We'll do a couple of these things. I'll respond via email as well to keep some of these moving. Work with Dan, and we'll be ready
Sure.
for our May meeting
Yeah.
with currently no additions other than what we talked about today.
Right.
Fantastic. And we will
Yeah.
bring the meeting to a close.